Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am the Sipping Tea, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Cold War Cobra Arctic H.I.S.S. Before I get into that, I just wanted to once again really express my appreciation to everyone who likes, subscribes and comments on these videos. I've just passed another milestone. I'm now at 40 subscribers, and that is just huge. I've not even been going a month yet, and I'm just so incredibly grateful to everyone who shows me support. It's been truly amazing. I never imagined that I would be growing this quickly. Something else I would like to very briefly highlight is the fact that because this channel is so new, I don't meet the requirements for monetization, so I don't make any money at all from my videos, and the chances are I won't do for, well, a very long time, perhaps even never. The requirements are 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 combined viewed hours, and I am quite a long way off that. So with that being said, if you do like my content and if you can show some further support, then please do click on the Patreon link in the description, and just, if you can, show a bit of support that way. It doesn't have to be much at all, or indeed anything at all if you really can't or just would rather not, but for those who can, I would truly appreciate it. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. So the Arctic H.I.S.S. is once again part of the G.I Joe series of tanks. The gold cost, the full gold cost, is 12,500, so again a little bit on the higher side in my opinion. However, as you will hopefully come to see in this video, I think it is worth every penny, even at the full price. Of course it is on sale, at least at the moment, at time of recording. But because they are licensed vehicles, of course, the sales no doubt will be few and far between. Going on to the earn rate, the silver earn rate for this tank is a bonus 65%, the tank XP is a bonus 10%, and the crew rate is again a bonus 10%. So that silver earn rate plus 65%, that is very, very good. So the Arctic H.I.S.S. is a premium light tank that you will find in Cold War in Era 2. It has 4 missiles mounted onto the top of the vehicle, along with a primary cannon as well. This tank is a multi-weapon tank, meaning that you can use the main, relatively quick-firing main cannon whilst the missiles are loading simultaneously. So it is another one of those tanks, very similar to the AMX light tank of the same era that recently launched into the game. In a lot of respects, I would say these tanks are quite similar, in fact. Now, moving on to the gun statistics, I would say that this is reasonably good for a light tank of the era. You've got a penetration of 309mm on the standard shells and 320 on the premium rounds. Damage for both is 240. So the damage is relatively low, but of course something to keep in mind is that the stock reload time is only 4.4 seconds, so that is quite good. The rate of fire, assuming it's unadulterated by any equipment, crew skills or consumables, is 13.64 rounds per minute. So that is pretty good, but also consider the fact, of course, that you are able to fire the main cannon followed by the ATGM, the rocket launcher, so to speak. Now that is also quite impressive, because the penetration for that is 480mm with a damage of 1,100, obviously up to that, just like all of those statistics. Reload time for the entire clip is 55 seconds. That is a very long time for the reload right there. However, you do get 4 rockets or missiles within that clip, so you can, of course, deal some major damage if you fire the main cannon, switch over to a missile, fire that off, switch over to the main cannon. You can let loose a few of those rounds whilst the next rocket is loading. And you can seriously pump out an awful lot of damage in this tank using that tactic. The aim time for the gun is 2.3 seconds. The ammo capacity of the main rounds, the primary weapon, is 80 rounds, and what I would say about that is that you do get an awful lot of rounds on the primary weapon just there. I think that is quite good, and not always do they give enough rounds when it comes to tanks that do fire relatively rapidly. You also get 12 rounds for the missiles, so that's quite generous. In fact, better than the AMX's 8 rounds in total. To finish off the gun statistics, let's have a look then. The gun depression is 8 degrees, which is okay. It's not amazing, but it's not a Russian tank, is it? So at least there's that. And gun elevation is 30 degrees, quite decent as well. Moving on then to the engine. So the engine has just a 10% fire chance, which is reasonably low. It's more or less the average, I think, in this game. The maximum speed is 72.5 kilometers an hour, which is pretty nippy. The top reverse speed is 34 kilometers an hour, which again is very, very fast. I would say that the downsides of the Arctic H.I.S.S regarding mobility is that it doesn't really have much capacity to make relatively quick or sharp turns when in motion. It can, weirdly, turn really, really quickly when you're more or less still. It really does sort of whip round rapidly. But nonetheless, a liberal use of the handbrake in-game when you're beetling along at your full speed of 70 plus kilometers an hour will enable you to sling the vehicle about reasonably well and hopefully outmaneuver some of those slower, large, heavy tanks. Before moving on to anything else, a quick note I would like to make regarding the missiles, just to briefly go back to the weapons again, is that because these missiles are mounted on the very top of the vehicle, something I have noticed, both when playing the tank and indeed coming up against the Arctic H.I.S.S, is that if you fire a missile at an enemy at close range, and I mean very close range, the chances are that missile is not going to go where you're aiming and will just sail straight over the enemy tank. So that's obviously not a good thing. It's a very frustrating thing, in fact, especially when you're in a very lightly armoured light tank and need to just sort of pummel the enemy as quickly as possible to avoid taking massive damage from them. Just keep that in mind. Keep it in mind that the missiles do like to sail over the top of tanks if you are shooting at very, very close range. Again, because the missiles are mounted right at the very top, it means that they just don't have the gun depression to actually get right down low to a tank that is more or less right in your face. So do keep that rather important factor in mind. Moving on to Camouflage. So this tank, before the sort of the patch about a year ago or so, when the Armadillo and other light tanks in Cold War were nerfed in terms of camo and other factors, the camouflage of this tank was absolutely obscene. You could hide in a bush. Very fond memories of vineyards where I was just hiding in a bush in the middle of the map, and I could see more or less the entirety of the map, and I could just fire off missiles and absolutely annihilate the enemy, and they had no idea where it came from or what was going on. Those days are gone. However, with a still concealment of 0.36, this tank is still very, very stealthy. It is a sneaky, sneaky snake, as is the Arctic H.I.S.S. So this tank is very much a capable passive spotter. So you can sort of sit in a bush and scout out the enemy team for the most part. Again, it doesn't have as much camo as it once did, so do keep that in mind. You know, just like with most things, you've got to sort of feel it out and see exactly how these things feel for you. But camouflage on this tank, really very, very good. The Arctic H.I.S.S also has 2,400 HP, which is quite respectable for the era for a light tank. So yeah, that's pretty decent. The armor is of course very thin because it is a light tank, but well, there seems to be a ever increasing trait in Cold War where when you shoot at a light tank, you will sometimes, and increasingly so, bounce off them, despite the fact that they have nothing more than a shoebox for armor. They do like to ricochet rounds sometimes, and that sort of brings me on to the wedge shape of the Arctic H.I.S.S. So at the front of the vehicle, you will notice that it is a wedge shape, and well, that really does like to ricochet rounds more often than you might expect. Don't sort of go into it feeling entitled to ricochet these rounds, because you are a lightly armoured light tank, but certainly it does bounce the rounds far more often than it should do. So that is really very good for the Arctic H.I.S.S, I would say. Personally, my equipment loadout for the Arctic H.I.S.S is advanced concealment, so camo net, advanced optics, as well for the increased view range, and also improved ventilation vents. The improved ventilation, of course, great for just about everything. It will help a little bit with the reload, which again for the missiles is quite a long time. The concealment, so the camo net really does help when it comes to the camouflage factor to try and negate some of that nerf from about a year ago, and the optics, like I said before, just really does help with that view range, helping you get as much assist damage as possible. The commander skills on the Arctic H.I.S.S, well, you know, there's always going to be, as I've mentioned before, my my absolutely strictly very necessary imperative crew skills. So we're going to be looking at Sixth Sense, Spawn Leader, Rapid Loading, Steady Aim, and Snapshot. Now with the Arctic H.I.S.S, I would strongly recommend all of the camouflage skills, with the exception of course of silent driving. You don't need those on light tanks, they come with it effectively. Those would be the main ones that I would recommend to you. If you can then go for other skills as well, then so much the better. A bit of run and gun, for instance, would certainly not be a problem with the Arctic H.I.S.S. Moving on to consumables. Now in this content you can see that I am actually using some premium consumables in one video. The very first one, you can see that I'm using the premium repair kit along with the med kit and the premium smoke, which again helps passively with camouflage as well as the obvious actual smoke screen. And on the second video, which is a slightly older one, I don't have the smoke on there, I have the fire extinguisher instead. So either one of those good setups. I personally would go with the replacing the fire extinguisher with the smoke. The engine, as I mentioned earlier, only has a 10% chance of fire, so perhaps a fire extinguisher might be somewhat superfluous there. So yeah, I like having the smoke on there. I'm slowly being converted to use premium consumables. That's it for this video. So once again, I would like to express my appreciation for everyone who watches, likes, comments and has subscribed to my channel. It really does help me out. As I've mentioned before, I really can't thank you enough for that. So yes, thank you ever so much for supporting me in these early days. something I would like to ask of you is if you have any suggestions for the type of content you would like me to produce in future, then please do leave a comment below. I really am very appreciative of everyone who leaves a comment and gives me any feedback. Recently, an issue regarding my audio was brought up to me. Audio is something that I do struggle with when making these videos at the moment. It's something that I am getting better with, but I am limited to a certain extent by the hardware I have and the software that I use, and of course my own, well, lack of experience and therefore inability to really send out highly polished audio. So yes, any feedback, please do just leave it in the comments below. I read and react to every single comment that is made on this channel, so again, thank you ever so much for those who have done so. That's it for the video. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.